courtroom smelled like old paper and bad decisions. Marcus Hale's lawyer leaned in and whispered 5 words. Just 5. Whatever they were, they hollowed him out. The confidence slid off his face like grease rinsed down a drain. His hand froze mid-signature. The pen rattled against the table. Across from him, I felt something stretch open in my chest, slow, calm, inevitable. For the first time in 3 years, I smiled. Marcus looked up at me then. Really looked. Like he was seeing a stranger wearing my face. Too late. My name is Rachel Monroe. I'm 35 years old, and until 3 months ago I was married to Marcus Hale for 16 years. Longer than most startups survive, longer than his patience with me ever did. I met him at 18. I'd escaped my parents' place early and taken a filing job at a downtown Chicago law firm. Minimum pay, maximum exposure. I learned how money really moves when people think no one's watching. Marcus was 25, sharp suit, sharper smile, already talking about building something big in real estate. He said the future like it owed him rent. I offered to help with the paperwork. We married fast. Our son, Evan, came a year later. I kept working, part-time at first, then full-time behind the scenes of Marcus's growing company. When his first big deal landed, he asked me to quit the firm and help him just for a while. That while lasted 11 years. I ran the books, managed contractors, smoothed investors, planned events, fixed his mistakes quietly. My title was wife. My job was everything else. Marcus got the awards, the interviews, the applause. I got forgotten. Then he started changing. Staying out late, making decisions without me, critiquing how I dressed, how I cooked, how I lacked ambition. Funny thing to say to the woman keeping your business alive for free. 3 months ago, on a Tuesday night, he ended it between the salt shaker and the butter dish. "I want a divorce," he said. Then, like he was ordering takeout, "I'll keep the house, the cars, the company. You can keep Evan." That was the moment everyone thought I broke. What no one knew, what Marcus never imagined, was that I'd already been waiting 3 years for him to say those words. And when he asked for everything, he didn't realize he was asking for a bomb. The day after Marcus asked for the divorce, he moved me into the guest room. Not suggested, not discussed, moved. My clothes were folded into 2 drawers like an afterthought. His suit jacket still filled the master closet, broad and territorial. The message was clear. I was already gone. I just hadn't left yet. By the end of the week, he had paperwork, settlement drafts, timelines, numbers highlighted in yellow like they were already decided. He spoke to me the way men speak to waiters when they're in a hurry, polite, distracted, certain of obedience. Then his mother arrived. Elaine Hale swept into the house with her practiced sympathy and expensive perfume. She squeezed my hand, sighed dramatically, and told me I should have tried harder. "Men have needs, Rachel," she said, slow and loud, like explaining math to a child. She stayed 3 hours, long enough to inventory what she believed belonged to her family. A week later, Marcus canceled my credit card. "Temporary," he said. Then the joint account. Then he suggested, gently, generously, that I might want to find somewhere else to stay while things settled. That's when she showed up. Lena Brooks, 27, worked at his company. Long legs, perfect teeth, the kind of confidence that comes from never having to earn anything yet. She walked into my kitchen like she'd rehearsed it, used my blender, wore my apron, smiled at me like I was already a memory. Marcus didn't even pretend to hide her. His arm around her on my couch, their laughter echoing through the house I'd built piece by piece. I learned humiliation has layers. First shock, then disbelief. Then the quiet, burning clarity. They took everything else too. Elaine helped pack my things, garbage bags, not boxes. She decided what I deserved. Old clothes, yes. Family photos, some. Jewelry, no. Furniture, no. Anything with value, absolutely not. Through all of it, I leaned on one person. My best friend, Tara. 20 years of history. She listened, she brought wine, she told me I deserved better. But Marcus started knowing things he shouldn't. Plans I hadn't shared with him. Thoughts I'd only said out loud once. Then I noticed how Tara looked at him. How she always asked about him first. The betrayal clicked into place quietly, like a lock turning. And while the adults were busy ruining each other, my son was watching. Evan saw the girlfriend, the bags, the way his father spoke about me like I was a problem to manage. He started pulling away, confused, torn. That was when I made my decision. I wouldn't fight him. I would let him win, and I would make sure the victory destroyed him. People assume silence means surrender. What it really means is preparation. 3 years before Marcus asked for the divorce, before Lena, before the late nights had excuses, I was reconciling the company accounts at the kitchen table. Same routine I'd done 1,000 times, coffee going cold, calculator tapping. Then I saw a transfer I didn't recognize. Then another, then a pattern. I stayed up until nearly 4 in the morning, following the money like a blood trail. What I found made my hands shake. The house? 3 mortgages. The first one I knew about. The second taken out quietly. The third layered on top like a lie piled on a lie. We owed more than the place was worth by $250,000. The business was worse. Maxed out credit lines, back taxes, vendor debt, equipment loans. Everything propped up on borrowed time. Even the cars were illusions. Leases, balloon payments. Nothing owned outright. Marcus wasn't rich. He was drowning, and dragging us with him. I didn't confront him. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. Because I knew Marcus. If he sensed danger, he'd spin it, shift blame, maybe even come after the one thing I'd always protected. My own money. An old retirement account from my law firm days. An inheritance from my grandmother, never mixed, never touched, just waiting. I locked it down, put it into a trust for Evan, irrevocable, untouchable. Then I documented everything, every loan, every signature, every lie, copies everywhere. I waited. Men like Marcus always leave. They get bored, or greedy, or careless. When he finally demanded the house, the business, the cars, everything, I almost laughed. He thought he was taking assets. He was taking debt. In the present, I slid 3 binders across my lawyer's desk. She read in silence, then looked up slowly. "You've known about this for years," she said. I was waiting for him to ask for it all. Her expression changed then, from concern to something sharper. That's when I knew the end game had begun. And Marcus? He still thought he was winning. I hired a lawyer and made sure everyone knew I hated it. I played the role perfectly. Exhausted, overwhelmed, barely functional. I chose Claire Donovan, early 50s, sharp eyes, sharper mouth. She laid out the obvious strategy in our first meeting. "You're entitled to half," she said. "The house, the business, everything." I stared at the floor like I was afraid of my own shadow. "What if I don't want to fight?" She paused, studied me, clearly recalculating. She thought I was broken. That was useful. I moved Evan and myself into a cramped 2-bedroom apartment across town. Boxes stacked like evidence of failure. Meanwhile, Marcus posted photos online. New suits, new restaurants, Lena on his arm. New chapter, blessed. He started bragging that I wasn't even contesting the divorce. Elaine told her friends I didn't have the backbone. Tara kept calling, checking in, fishing. I fed her exactly what Marcus needed to hear. "I'm so tired," I'd say. "I just want it over." By the next morning, Marcus would be relaxed, careless, buying expensive things, talking too much. At mediation, I asked for almost nothing. A small cash payout, shared custody, my personal belongings. Marcus agreed immediately. That's when Evan started asking questions. He noticed his dad's new watch, but also the excuses. The way money was tight only when it involved him. One night, sitting at our tiny kitchen table, he looked at me and asked quietly, "Mom, is Dad actually rich?" I didn't answer. I just told him to wait. Behind the scenes, Claire attached an addendum to the settlement. A full liability disclosure. Every mortgage, every loan, every dollar Marcus owed, tied directly to the assets he was demanding. All legal, all clean. 2 weeks before the final hearing, Marcus's lawyer suggested an audit. Marcus refused, signed a waiver without reading it. The night before court, Marcus texted me, "Thanks for not making this ugly." I smiled at my phone. Tomorrow, he'd get everything he asked for and find out what it really cost. Courtroom 4B was quiet in that surgical way, like everyone knew something was about to bleed. Marcus arrived early, confident, expensive suit, that smug half-smile he wore when he thought the world was bending his way. Lena waited in the hall, scrolling her phone, bored already. Elaine sat behind him, posture straight, victory assumed. I came in last, plain navy dress, no jewelry, hair pulled back tight. I looked exactly how everyone expected me to look, small, tired, finished. Claire leaned close and whispered, "You good?" "I've been ready for years," I said. The judge reviewed the agreement. Pages turned, pens passed. Marcus signed fast, barely glancing down. He was already gone in his head, already spending money he didn't have. Then his lawyer froze. I watched it happen in real time. The pause, the reread, the flicker of confusion. He leaned toward Marcus and whispered urgently. I couldn't hear the words, but I saw the effect. Marcus waved him off, annoyed, impatient. "No," his lawyer said again, louder this time. "You're assuming all liabilities." Marcus finally looked, really looked. The color drained from his face. His hands started shaking. He flipped pages. Numbers stared back at him, unforgiving. Mortgages, loans, debts stacked like bricks around his neck. "This isn't right," Marcus said, standing up too fast. "She hid this." The judge shut him down instantly. His lawyer produced the waiver, the one Marcus had signed refusing an audit. Silence swallowed the room. "You were advised," the judge said. "You declined. The agreement stands." Marcus looked at me then, eyes wide, voice cracking. "You knew." "I ran your books for 11 years, I said calmly. "Of course I knew." The gavel came down. Divorce granted. Assets awarded. Liabilities included. Marcus had gotten everything. And it was all poison. As I stood to leave, I leaned close enough for him to hear. "You asked for it all," I whispered, "so I gave it to you." Then I walked out. The fallout started before I reached the elevator. Marcus's voice echoed down the hallway, sharp, panicked, stripped of authority. His lawyer kept repeating the same calm sentence, over and over, like a prayer that wouldn't work. "I advised you. You declined." Through the glass doors, I saw Lena finally look up from her phone. Really look. Her smile didn't fade all at once. It fractured. Confusion first, then calculation, then fear. Marcus stepped toward her, talking fast, hands moving, explaining, always explaining. She took one step back, then another. By the time the elevator doors closed, she was already gone. Within a week, she moved out of the house. Middle of the night. Took her clothes, her bags, her illusion. Left behind gray walls and unpaid bills. The Victory kitchen she'd repainted sat empty and cold. Marcus tried to sell the house. No buyers, only banks. Daily calls. Past due notices. Words like short sale and default started replacing equity and growth. The business followed. Vendors stopped delivering. Lawsuits stacked up. Credit froze. The empire everyone admired turned out to be a cardboard skyline in the rain. Elaine stopped calling me. Started calling relatives, friends. Anyone who might help Marcus get through a rough patch. Funny how strength disappears when money does. Evan watched it all quietly. He noticed the excuses stopped working. Noticed how his dad's stories changed every time he told them. One night, sitting across from me in our small apartment, he finally said it. "You waited," he said. "You knew." "I needed you safe," I told him. He nodded. Then he hugged me, harder than he had in months. That was the moment I knew I hadn't lost him after all. 3 months after the hearing, Marcus showed up at my door. He looked smaller, older, his watch was gone, his suit wrinkled. He talked about mistakes, about regret, about us. I listened, patient, detached. Then I closed the door. What he didn't know, what no one knew yet, was that the real collapse hadn't even started. Because debt doesn't just ruin finances, it ruins reputations. And Marcus Hale was about to learn that lesson the hard way. Marcus's name started disappearing first, quietly, subtly, like a light flickering out in rooms he no longer had access to. Invitations stopped coming. Industry mixers he used to headline suddenly had limited capacity. Calls went to voicemail. Emails went unanswered. People who once laughed too loudly at his jokes now remembered urgent appointments when they saw him coming. Debt has a smell. Professionals can sense it. The lawsuits became public record. Vendor disputes, breach notices, missed payments. His company's glossy website stayed up, but the reality underneath it was rotting. Employees started leaving. Not dramatically, just one by one, with polite resignation emails and LinkedIn updates posted a week later. Marcus tried damage control. Told people it was temporary, a restructuring, a strategic pivot. The same buzzwords he'd used for years, only now they sounded desperate instead of visionary. Elaine tried to salvage the narrative. She called old friends, church contacts, distant relatives. She spoke in hushed tones about misunderstandings and unfair timing, but sympathy dries up fast when it starts costing money. Then the bank notices escalated, final warnings, acceleration clauses, the kind of letters that don't ask, they inform. Marcus filed for bankruptcy protection 2 weeks later. That's when the truth stopped being optional. Court filings don't care about ego. They list numbers, names, decisions. Every loan Marcus had taken. Every signature he'd scribbled without reading. Every risk he'd sworn was handled. People started connecting dots. The man who once bragged about his empire was suddenly the cautionary tale whispered over cocktails. "Did you hear about Hale?" Turns out it was all smoke. The admiration curdled into something worse than pity. Embarrassment. One afternoon, Evan came home from school quieter than usual. A kid had said something. Nothing cruel, just curious. Asked why his dad didn't work there anymore. Asked why their house was for sale online. Evan didn't cry. He just looked tired. That night, I showed him the truth. Not all of it, but enough. Documents, dates, decisions. I didn't poison him against his father. I didn't have to. The facts did that on their own. Meanwhile, Marcus spiraled. He called, texted, left long voicemails full of half apologies and vague promises. He never said I did this. He only said this happened to me. That was when I understood something important. He still hadn't learned, and the final reckoning wouldn't come from the courts. It would come when he realized no one was left to blame but himself. Marcus hit bottom the way he'd lived, loudly, publicly, and still blaming everyone else. The bankruptcy slowed the bleeding, but didn't stop it. Creditors circled. Former partners suddenly remembered contracts he'd overlooked. Deals he'd shaken on without paperwork came back with teeth. When money vanishes, memory gets very sharp. Elaine stopped defending him. Not out of shame, out of exhaustion. She was tired of the calls, tired of being asked for help she couldn't give. The woman who once packed my life into garbage bags now avoided my son's name entirely. Then Tara showed up, not at my door. At a coffee shop across from my apartment, like this was some kind of neutral ground. She looked smaller than I remembered. Older. The confidence was gone. "I didn't know it was this bad," she said. "He told me you were exaggerating, that you were unstable." I sipped my coffee. Let silence do the work. She admitted Marcus had promised her things. A future. A place once the divorce was clean. Turns out, debt doesn't make room for romance. He stopped calling her the moment the numbers turned real. "I lost everything too," she whispered. "No," I said calmly. "You gambled and lost. There's a difference." She cried. I stood. Some chapters don't deserve conclusions. A week later, Marcus tried one last play. He filed a motion claiming I'd manipulated the settlement, claimed fraud, claimed coercion, claimed he hadn't been mentally sound when he signed. The judge dismissed it in 15 minutes. Same documents, same waiver, same signature, final. That night, Evan asked me something that stopped me cold. "If he didn't change," he said, "would you still be waiting?" I thought about the years, the patience, the pretending, the careful silence. "No," I said. "I was waiting for the truth to catch up with him." Marcus didn't call anymore after that. No texts, no voicemails, nothing. The silence this time wasn't strategy, it was surrender. But the story wasn't over yet because 3 days later I got a call from Claire. "They found something else," she said. "Something Marcus never told either of us." My stomach tightened. What kind of something? The kind that could send him to prison. Claire's voice was tight when she called back. "They flagged inconsistencies during the bankruptcy review," she said. "Transfers that don't match declared losses. Money that didn't just disappear." I sat down slowly. Outside my window, traffic moved like nothing in the world was wrong. "What are we talking about?" I asked. "Wire transfers routed through shell accounts, small at first, then bigger. Not just bad investments, Rachel, concealment." It turned out Marcus hadn't only been reckless. He'd been strategic, just not smart enough. While claiming losses, he'd quietly moved money into an LLC registered under a cousin's name. Not enough to save him, but enough to bury himself. Bankruptcy fraud isn't a gray area. Federal investigators stepped in fast. Subpoenas. Interviews. Questions that didn't come with friendly smiles. Marcus stopped answering his phone altogether. When they froze accounts, the last illusion shattered. Evan heard about it at school. Not from gossip, from a teacher pulling him aside, gently asking if everything was okay at home. That was the moment I hated Marcus again, sharply and cleanly. Marcus was charged 2 weeks later, not arrested yet, just charged. But the word followed him like a shadow. People crossed the street to avoid him. Old allies deleted photos. Silence turned hostile. He showed up at my apartment one final time. No suit, no confidence, just a man stripped down to consequences. "I need you," he said. Not "I'm sorry," not I was wrong, just need. I looked at him for a long moment, saw every version of him I'd ever known collapse into one small, desperate shape. You already took everything you could from me, I said. There's nothing left. He nodded like he finally understood. Then he left. The trial date was set. Evan asked if he had to testify. I told him no. Some truths don't need witnesses. They're documented. On the night before the arraignment, I couldn't sleep. Not from fear, from release. The waiting was finally over. 3 years of patience had carried me here. Tomorrow, Marcus would face the only opponent he couldn't charm, bully, or blame. Reality, and after that, I would finally be done. Marcus never made it to trial. 2 days before his arraignment, he took a plea deal, quiet, fast, humiliating. Bankruptcy fraud, financial concealment. No dramatic courtroom showdown. Just a closed-door agreement and a press release no one bothered to read past the headline. Former real estate executive pleads guilty. That was it. That was the legacy. He avoided prison, barely. Probation. Restitution he'd never fully pay. A permanent record that followed him everywhere. Applications were filled out and background checks were run. The kind of mark you can't rebrand away. The house was foreclosed 6 months later. I drove past it once. Just once. The lawn was dead. Windows dark. A bank-owned sign hammered into the ground where we'd once planted tulips with Evan when he was 5. I didn't stop the car. Some things don't deserve nostalgia. Elaine moved to Florida to live with a sister who didn't ask questions. Her Christmas letters stopped coming. Tara deleted her social media and vanished into whatever quiet corner people choose when they can't stand their own reflection anymore. Marcus tried to reach out after the plea, a letter, handwritten, apologetic in tone, vague in substance. He said he finally understood, that losing everything had taught him who he really was. I didn't write back, because here's the truth he never learned. I didn't win because I was cruel. I won because I was patient. Because I paid attention. Because I believed consequences matter. Evan thrived once the noise stopped. His grades climbed. His laugh came back. The weight he'd been carrying, confusion, loyalty, fear, lifted without a single conversation where I had to poison him against his father. The truth had done its work quietly. The trust stayed untouched. College letters started arriving. Possibilities unfolded. As for me, I finished my interior design certification. Started small. 1 apartment. 1 room. 1 woman at a time rebuilding after someone else's damage. Kitchens painted sage green more often than not. The color of new beginnings. On the anniversary of the divorce, I sat alone in my living room. My living room, ice cream in hand, lights low, silence peaceful. I thought about that courtroom, the pen shaking in Marcus's hand, the moment he realized the game had ended. He asked for everything, and I gave it to him. Then I built a life that required none of it.